search for that missing submersible in the Atlantic Ocean. Coast Guard officials say the vessel suffered a, quote, catastrophic implosion near the wreckage of the Titanic, killing all 5 people on board. It's the worst possible outcome for the international team of rescuers who were racing against time to save the lives of those passengers. Earlier today, 2 debris fields were discovered less than 2,000 feet from the Titanic by a Canadian ship's remotely operated vehicle. It was scanning the ocean floor. Experts say the debris fields are consistent with a catastrophic loss of the pressure chamber. The Coast Guard said 5 major pieces of the vessel have been found, but it is not clear if recovery of the bodies will ever be possible. CBS's Roxana Saberi, who's been covering these developments all week, leads us off tonight from Boston. Roxana.
Good evening, Jerika. The Coast Guard here in Boston, which led the international search efforts, says it's too soon to tell why the submersible imploded. They're offering condolences to the families of the 5 passengers on board who lost their lives.
A tragic end to a frantic search.
This morning, an ROV, or remote operated vehicle, from the vessel Horizon Arctic discovered the tail cone of the Titan submersible.
The debris of the missing submersible Titan was found about 1,600 feet from the Titanic wreckage.
This is an incredibly unforgiving environment down there on the seafloor. And the debris is consistent with a catastrophic implosion of the vessel.
The cause of the implosion is still unknown, but all 5 people aboard were killed. OceanGate founder Stockton Rush, billionaire adventurer Hamish Harding, Pakistani businessman Shahzada Dawood and his 19-year-old son Suleiman, and French explorer Paul-Henri Nargeolet. The Titan has been missing since Sunday, when it descended to the Titanic wreckage site about 2.5 miles beneath the North Atlantic, sparking a massive international search covering about 10,000 square miles. The company OceanGate Expeditions charges $250,000 to see the Titanic up close. Pierre Wimmer, an explorer himself, says he got to know the company's CEO, Stockton Rush, when he was considering a dive years ago.
Stockton obviously was a deep-sea explorer who did what few people have done.
But OceanGate has faced criticism from a group of experts in the submersible industry who wrote a letter to the company in 2018 warning of possible catastrophic problems. One of those experts, Will Cohen, said the Titan hadn't passed safety standards.
There are only 10 vehicles in the whole world that can go 4,000 meters or deeper, and all of them are certified except the Titan.
While Wimmer mourns for his friend, he believes this setback will not stop other people from deep water exploring.
We've never been held back by defeats along the way. The quest will continue for exploration.
And tonight, a Navy official tells CBS News that the Navy detected what it called an acoustic anomaly consistent with an implosion shortly after the Titan lost contact on Sunday. The official says the information was shared with the Coast Guard, which used it to narrow down the search area. Jerika?
All right, Roxana Saberi, thank you.
Whoever you are, wherever you are, hope you are blessed and doing safe. Ladies and gentlemen, greetings, family. Of course, I'm tuning in. You see me without the glasses off today. But if you're looking for some opportunities, particular advertisement opportunities, then look no further at the link at the bottom to my email address. You can hit me up for advertisement opportunities. We are supporting and promoting your businesses here on this channel. You can also, if you would like to donate and subscribe to our Patreon, a link is at the bottom as well. So you have multiple ways in which you can advertise with the platform, by emailing me when we go on through our live stream. You also have access to premium content, those that want to see premium content that you will not find here on YouTube or Facebook or Twitter, as I am suspended probably by now. You guys can check out the Patreon at link at the bottom. But advertisement opportunities, definitely email me, gavin.grich1@gmail.com for rates. And for the Patreon, it is the same as the YouTube channel. It is channel gboot2786. All right, I'll holla. Peace.
Talk about an offer that's hard to refuse. Our David Pogue
Not today.
was invited recently to join the highly select and very small group of people who've actually made it to the bottom of the Atlantic to view firsthand the eerie remains of the Titanic. It promised to be quite a journey, quite a story besides.
Maybe you've heard the story of the Titanic.
Iceberg, right ahead!
I think there was a movie about it. For the most part, the only people who've ever seen the Titanic since that night have been scientists. Until now.
So I want to point this out. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of Random Topic Thursdays. I'm still slightly under the weather, but I'm nevertheless here. And we're going to be talking about, obviously, the big news is Titanic screw-ups. You have 5 individuals, one of them a 19-year-old, who, and including this man, Stockton Rush, who is the CEO of OceanGate, which basically used a submersive vehicle, which is what, to go visit the Titanic and charge $250,000 for each visitor. Now, none of us can, not you or I, probably can afford something like this, unless you're a multi-billionaire, which one of them, as you saw in the reports, were. I'm playing this video because I actually saw this a few months ago. This came out in December. And this interview with David Pogue, who is the interviewer for CBS Morning News, I want y'all to pay very close attention to the stuff that was said, because the warnings were there and no one shredded those warnings, as you've heard. How this vehicle is not certified, how it didn't even, I even saw James Cameron, who has done dives to the Titanic. He's even talked about in his interviews how those vessels are not only certified, but there's also another submersive vehicle that's present and attached in case the one vehicle actually gets detached, if it gets tangled up in any wreckage and so forth. Of course, these vehicles are doing deep dives. This is over 12,000 feet in the water in the Atlantic Ocean.
It's a very unusual business. It's its own category. It's a new type of travel.
Stockton Rush is the CEO of OceanGate, a company that offers dives to the Titanic in a one-of-a-kind carbon fiber submersible for $250,000 per person.
Who are the typical clientele for these missions? We have clients that are Titanic enthusiasts, which we refer to as Titaniacs. We have people who have mortgaged their home to come and do the trip. And we have people who don't think twice about a trip of this cost. We had one gentleman who had won the lottery.
And this summer, Rush invited us to come along. We departed from St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada, the easternmost tip of North America, about 400 miles from the Titanic.
That's the last we'll be seeing of land for 8 days.
Aboard a chartered oil rig servicing ship. During our 2-day journey into the North Atlantic, we got to know our fellow adventurers. They included everyone from Indian industry mogul Shrenik Baldota.
Yeah, they call me a wild monk.
The wild monk?
Yeah, because I look like a monk. I'm very calm, but I have these extreme...
fair use. So I want you to just look at this clientele. We're going to talk about other stuff too, but this is obviously the number one thing going on in the nation. This submersible that imploded with 5 souls aboard. But I want y'all to look at these individuals, and I want you to tell me what you notice about them. Fair use throughout. I know they may try and put a copyright claim, so I'm not going to play through the whole video, but there are some important parts I want you to listen to. So hold on.
Interest
to bank executive Renata Rojas.
I'm trying to fulfill a dream. I've been wanting to go to Titanic and see it with my own eyes since before they found it.
She's been saving up to see the Titanic for 30 years.
Dreams don't have a price.
Why?
Some people want a Ferrari. Some people buy a house. I wanted to go to Titanic.
But the star of the show is the Titan, Stockton Rush's custom-built submersible. 5-inch thick carbon fiber capped on each end by a dome of titanium.
So he custom built this. Russ custom built this submersible. All right. But listen to what happens next. David Prog is going to tell you there's a waiver.
All went well, I myself would be spending about 12 hours sealed inside on a dive to the Titanic. Not gonna lie, I was a little nervous. An experimental submersible vessel that has not been approved or certified by any regulatory body and could result in physical injury, disability, emotional trauma, or death.
Experimental. He says it right there. This was December of 2022. Approximately 6.5 months ago. And here we are. You heard it, right, Sean?
Yes, I did.
So let's finish.
Where do I sign?
It said experimental can result in physical injury, harm, or death.
Where do I sign?
And could result in approved or certified by any regulatory body and could result in physical injury, disability, emotional trauma, or death.
Where do I sign?
Oh, take your shoes off. That's customary. Okay. Wow.
Inside, the sub has about as much room as a minivan.
So this is not your grandfather's submersible. We only have one button. That's it. It should be like an elevator. You know, it shouldn't take a lot of skill.
The Titan is the only 5-person sub in the world that can reach Titanic depths, 2.4 miles below the sea. It's also the only one with a toilet, sort of. And yet I couldn't help noticing how many pieces of this sub seemed improvised.
We can use these off-the-shelf components. I got these from Camper World. We run the off-the-shelf components. I got these from Camper World.
Excuse me? Did he buy deep water equipment from a wholesale store? Are y'all seeing this? Are you seeing this, Sean?
Yeah, I am. Arkham certified.
Thing with this game controller.
Oh, I've seen it all. He got there with an Xbox 360 controller. I don't even think it's an Xbox One. Or it could, you know what? I'll take it. Correct. I'm an Xbox fan. That's got to be a PS2. PS3. He took this controller. Maybe it ran out of batteries going down. I don't know. It's a serious thing. Of course, I feel sorry. Any type of loss of life. But come on. I especially feel sorry for the kid. But I want y'all, I'm going to finish playing the video. And fair use, by the way, under the Copyright Act of 1976, Section 107. This is made for criticism, news, and commentary on the subject. This is how billionaires spend their money. So when people are laughing, you see people clapping jokes. I saw somebody that was upset because that could have been your family. Hell no, nigga. My family could afford $250,000 to visit a 117-year-old shipwreck. Mother Nature is undefeated for a reason. The ocean ain't nothing to play with.
Come on! It seems like this submersible has some elements of MacGyver-y jerry-riggedness. I mean, you're putting construction pipes as ballast.
I don't know if I'd use that
description of it.
Cons-
But
construction
there's certain
type
things that you
ballast.
want to be
No,
buttoned down.
ballast in a ship. That's to give the ship balance. That's what ballast is mean. So they just got. Oh. It gives it stability. That's what it's used for.
So the pressure vessel is not MacGyvered at all, because that's where we work with Boeing and NASA and the University of Washington. Everything else can fail. Your thrusters can go, your lights can go, you're still going to be safe.
But when expedition manager Kyle Bingham studied the forecast for our Titanic dive, he concluded that the waves would be too big to launch the sub.
We're looking at 6 feet, and then it bumps up a little bit.
Our Titanic adventure would have to wait. But Stockton Rush offered our CBS crew a consolation dive to the continental shelf 80 miles away. Apparently there's a lot of sheer cliffs underwater to see, shark breeding ground. They say it's really cool. The crew closes the hatch from the outside with 17 bolts. There's no other way out. Here's how the launch is supposed to go. The sub is attached to a huge floating platform. Motorboats drag it down the big orange ramp into the sea.
We're in the water, we're floating. Woo! They're going to come and prepare the platform for the next phase, which is the sinking.
The platform submerges to around 30 feet, where the water is much calmer than on the surface.
You're in the water, people.
Divers detach the sub from the platform, and away you go, in theory.
Hull integrity, holding.
And what happened next? You won't be disappointed, as we'll show you a little later on Sunday morning. Our dive in the OceanGate submersible had made it down only 37 feet when this happened.
So apparently those floats there came off the platform, and that wasn't supposed to happen. So we're scrubbing?
Yeah, I think that's the consensus up here.
Copy that.
I was crushed. My diving adventures were over.
Every expedition has its challenges, all of them. I have not been in one expedition where things have to be adjusted, adapted, changed, or canceled at the end of the day. You're at the mercy of the weather.
Renata Rojas speaks from painful experience. Over the years, she's been booked on 3 Titanic expeditions. All 3 were canceled.
You just cry a lot and just keep the dream alive, because it's something that I have to do.
Our expedition had to wait out 2 more days of rough seas. Fortunately, there's a lot to do in the North Atlantic.
I'm the king of the surface vessel!
There's sea life, ship tours, atmospheric effects, and that, my friends, is called a fog bow. You can also hang out with scientists. Researchers like deep sea biologist Steve Ross and ocean archaeologist Rob Mather join every expedition. In effect, the passengers are funding their science.
How scientific is this expedition?
I don't do show science. So our job is to do real and important and valid work.
While you're down there, will you look for this giant heart-shaped diamond on a chain?
I think that's not there.
On our 6th day at sea, the weather cleared. The dive was a go.
Titan sitting at 3742 meters, reports on bottom.
But that was the last of the good news.
And I said, do you know where we are? 100 meters to the bow, then 470 to the bow. If you are lost, so are we.
There's no GPS underwater, so the surface ship is supposed to guide the sub to the shipwreck by sending text messages.
Turn 30 degrees right?
Probably, 30 degrees.
But on this dive, communications somehow broke down. The sub never found the wreck.
We were lost. We were lost for 2.5 hours.
Rush says he'll offer those passengers a free do-over next year. And that's just one cost of doing this business. Are you making money on this operation?
No. So not yet. People might say, hey, that's a lot of money, $250,000. But we went through over $1 million of gas.
It was our last day at sea. There was one last chance to reach the Titanic. And this time, good weather and good fortune were aligned.
Slow down, it's just in front of us. Just we're in front of the anchor.
Oh my gosh, here's the bow, guys.
Yeah.
You guys see it?
Look at that though, how it just kind of emerges out. Yeah. That is it. That is otherworldly.
And there it was, the famous bow, the ship's wheel pedestal, and memorial plaques from old expeditions. The bollards that once secured the ship in port, and the davits that lowered the lifeboats. The hole where a huge smokestack once stood, and the skylight over the radio room that sent out distress signals. Now, Titanic tourism has its detractors, but these expeditions don't disturb the wreck or retrieve artifacts, and Stockton Rush says that they're valuable to history.
At some point, there will be no Titanic. It will be eaten by the bacteria. It'll be an artificial reef that doesn't look like the Titanic.
Renata Rojas would agree. After 30 years of trying, she finally got to see the most famous shipwreck in the world.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I got the wreck. I'm worth 25 meters.
Oh, fantastic.
Stockton Rush plans to return to the wreck this coming summer. Until then, the Titanic will once again be alone.
Didn't make it to the Titanic, unfortunately. But this, he is already, the company, OceanGate, they already put out that they believe, and I mean, it's been confirmed by the Coast Guard as the Navy that these people are dead due to an implosion. And apparently there had been warning signs, red flags that had been thrown out. We even saw it in the CBS News interview that we, coverage that we saw right there, about how you had to sign waivers, also just the products that they used, how this wasn't certified by, like by any, this was not certified by any government authority. This was a private entity that was doing this, a private company. And most of these expeditions, of course, were done by scientists, people who had authorities from different countries like Russia and Canada and America. James Cameron did his dives to the Titanic with the help of the Russians. They obviously went through vigorous research, training, studies to get the right equipment, especially to do something like this, because this is not something you play with lives at stake, and that's the main thing. But what is interesting now is, and I wanted you all to pay attention, you all saw who these individuals were that spoke. None of them were Black Americans. Now, I bring that up for a reason, because now, after this tragedy has happened, somehow or another, they have people trying to blame the fact that trying to blame wokeness on the failure of this sub. Diversity drowning. Titanic sub CEO said he didn't want to hire old white guys. Fuels claims it disappeared because it was too woke. This is what they are saying now on Twitter and Facebook, that this crashed because of wokeness. I'm not going to inspire a 16-year-old to pursue marine technology, but a 25-year-old, who's a sub-pilot or platform operator, or one of our techs can be inspirational. Rush said, they were quoting Stockton Rush, who said who is on board the Titans, talked about not wanting to solely hire 50-year-old white guys. And conservatives seized on the clip. You had this piece of shit. I gotta mention this because Bishop Swan brought this up. Bishop Talbot Swan quoted this individual who I never heard of until recently. Joey Manarino. Y'all know who? Have you heard of him? He's a bastard. You about to say something, Sean?
No, I was just thinking, that's all.
He says, wokeness, I want you to look at this comment. He says, wokeness killed the people on that submarine. Let that sink in. They died because the woke CEO said he wouldn't hire 50-year-old white men who knew how to command submarines and would rather train others. And the CEO died too. That's the next level of go woke, go broke. And they
talks about hiring people.
Yes, I mean, when I started the business, one of the things you'll find there are other sub operators out there, but they typically have gentlemen who are ex-military submariners, and you'll see a whole bunch of 50-year-old white guys. I wanted our team to be younger, to be inspirational, and I'm not going to inspire a 16-year-old to go pursue marine technology.
So that's the clip he's talking about, but then he doubled back saying, guys, I know this is confusing to some, but the word woke is not a substitute for the word black. Black and woke aren't related. Bullshit. That's what you mean. Why would you even want to bring this up? How do you know what killed? Who even knew that this was because they had the way it was built? Anytime you go and mess with Mother Nature, anytime you build something that's man-made, doesn't matter if it's a it doesn't matter if it's a submarine, doesn't matter if it's a spaceship, even an airplane can crash. Now, the way they built today, of course, the technology we have is much stronger, but a submersive vessel like this wasn't built correctly. If it was, you want to blame it, though, on quote-unquote wokeness. You shouldn't even say the shit at all. Why can't you just say rest in peace to the individuals and pray for their families? That could be the kindest thing you could say, the best thing you could say. Otherwise, shut the hell up. But Bishop Swan brought this to my attention. And you see this, and we're talking about this implode, obviously what happened in this situation. But Sean, what did you think, obviously, from this? Bishop Talbot Swan, well, imagine a white-owned company building a submersible vessel commanded by a white man and occupied by a white man, and someone blaming its tragic implosion on not hiring white men. Go ahead, Sean.
Well, my condolences to the families of these people as related to their loss. But when I look at this situation, again, this is just an example of what happens when man is extremely arrogant. And the hubris here is a textbook example of what happens when you try to call yourself playing God and thinking that you're so much smarter than the Most High. Now, the reason for this ship imploding had to do with the owner basically being extremely cheap and looking to go out here and cut corners as related to building this submarine. Now, one of his executives had warned him about cutting corners like this, and he fired that individual and went on putting together this submarine as related to building it with carbon fiber. And as somebody who's been watching car videos, I can tell you carbon fiber, while it's very strong as related to car building, even has its limits in the automotive world. And with one of these carbon fiber tubs, if you use it for multiple times, it's going to develop cracks, and eventually the material itself is going to get fatigued, because with carbon fiber, this is synthetic material that is hardened with chemicals, and it's not designed to be that strong as people think it is. Yes, it's very light and is used for cars and things like that, but it wasn't really designed to be applied for something as intense as a submarine. Now, this submarine was built in a very questionable way and a very suspect way, because I'm thinking this carbon fiber, again, it's a material that's good for automotive use here and there. It's not rated for any sort of thing like deep diving. And this vehicle being a vehicle that's not certified, that's a red flag for me, because this was an experimental vehicle. And with it being an experimental vehicle, this was just designed to be a very dangerous thing. And the CEO was basically trying to play God with his life and putting the lives of others at risk as related to this whole Titanic venture. And while he managed to get away with this a couple of times, he basically got extremely arrogant. And he got really arrogant to the point where he thought he could just do this all the time, as he was working with this vehicle that he designed to cut corners with. I mean, he was cutting corners to the point where he had this crude vehicle basically set up with no signals inside as related to letting people know where they were, no sort of safety features, and everybody's bolted in. I mean, this vehicle was a clear and present danger to be in, but he put people's lives at risk. And eventually, what happened here was he basically ran out of luck. So, with this guy, he thought, oh, I'll be able to go on this trip down to see this Titanic once more. But this was the last time he'd be able to do this. And sadly, what happened was he played with fate, with God one last time. And this time he wound up losing. Now, according to the U.S. Coast Guard, they had heard this ship breaking up even just before it started diving. So this ship basically possibly had a lot of cracks in that carbon fiber. And that carbon fiber basically was the thing that led to this vehicle imploding. Now, it had a titanium hull and a titanium door. But really, the big issue, I would believe, with this ship imploding had to do with the carbon fiber. Because again, as somebody who has studied a lot of car videos, carbon fiber, once that tub cracks, that's the end for everybody at that point. And again, this was a textbook example of what happens when man tries to play God. And when he tries to play God, what happens is he winds up losing his life. Now, the great irony here is that this is the same type of arrogance that led to the destruction of the Titanic. Because with the Titanic, they had said that God couldn't sink that ship, and it sunk on its first voyage. And with the Titanic sinking because of that type of arrogance, the sub basically was destroyed for the same reason. So when I look at this situation again, it's man not learning from history, and sadly, history repeating itself.
More specifically, the captain of the Titanic actually sped through an ice field.
Yeah.
Which he had gotten several warnings not to. And the moon was not even out. So you got to imagine that had to have been probably one of the most scariest things to happen to anybody that was on board that ship. I'll take a step further. What our ancestors went through was even worse. I get it. But I'm just imagining on a ship at night and you hit an iceberg you can't see and it's flooding. By the way, they had ships that were nearby. I believe the California was one of those ships that could have gotten to them closer. They ignored the flares. They didn't come fast enough, and over 1,200 people were killed. But James Cameron even talked about this, and he, when you see here on ABC News, with this interview, he explained what he went through and how everything. He said he was just stunned by the similarities between the Titanic wreck and the tourist sub. I just want to play this and then we'll move on.
And another person closely familiar with the Titanic is the director, James Cameron himself, along with his Oscar-winning movie. Mr. Cameron, I understand you've made a number of dives to the wreckage site too. Just give us your sense on what you're feeling right now, looking at these images of the shipwreck that you studied so closely, and now hearing that another tragedy has been tied to the same area.
Well, I've been down there many times. I know the wreck site very well, as does my friend Bob Ballard. I've made 33 dives. I actually calculated that I've spent more time on the ship than the captain did back in the day. And of course, you know, as a submersible designer myself, I designed and built a sub to go to the deepest place in the ocean, 3 times deeper than Titanic. So I understand the engineering problems associated with building this type of vehicle and all the safety protocols that you have to go through. And I think that what Bob said, because I was watching, is absolutely critical for people to really get the take-home message from this, from our effort here, is deep submergence diving is a mature art. From the early 60s, where there were, you know, a few accidents, nobody was killed in the deep submergence, until now, is more time than between Kitty Hawk and the flight of the first 747. So if we haven't improved over that period of time, and you know, we have improved drastically over that period of time, and the certification protocols that all other deep submergence vehicles, except this one, that carry passengers, especially paying passengers, all over the world in tropical waters, deep coral reefs, other wreck sites, and so on. The safety record is the gold standard, absolutely. Not only no fatalities, but no major incidents requiring all of these assets to converge to a site. Of course, that's the nightmare that we've all lived with, you know, since all of us entered this field of deep exploration. We live with it in the back of our minds. But because implosion, as Bob described it, such a violent event, is first and foremost in our minds, the pressure boundary, which is what they call the hull of the sub, that the people go inside, is obviously first and foremost in our minds as engineers. And we spend so much time and energy on that. And we use all the computerized tools available today, finite element analysis. We worked on our sphere for our deep vehicle that went to the Challenger Deep for over 3 years, just in the computer, before we even made the thing. And then of course we pressure tested it over and over and over, and so on. So, you know, this is a mature art, and many people in the community were very concerned about this sub, and a number of you know, of the top players in the deep submergence engineering community even wrote letters to the company saying that what they were doing was too experimental to carry passengers and that needed to be certified, and so on. So I'm struck by the similarity of the Titanic disaster itself, where the captain was repeatedly warned about ice ahead of his ship, and yet he steamed at full speed into an ice field on a moonless night, and many people died as a result. And for a very similar tragedy where warnings went unheeded to take place at the same exact site, with all the diving that's going on all around the world, I think it's just astonishing. It's really quite surreal. And of course, P.H. Nargeolet, the French legendary submersible dive pilot, a friend of mine. You know, it's a very small community. I've known PH for 25 years. For him to have died tragically in this way is almost impossible for me to process.
It is certainly haunting to consider that comparison to the time.
So, but I mean, he knew what he was talking about. So we're gonna wrap it up on that subject, guys. But you know, it's a tragic situation. But don't mess with God. That's the moral of the story. Nothing in life is guaranteed. You certainly don't want to live your life through fear, but can certain things be avoided? Could this tragedy have been avoided? Yes, wholeheartedly. Smash up the likes, ladies and gentlemen. Smash up the likes. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen. I also want y'all to continue, if you can, buy The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania versus William H. Cosby on Amazon Kindle. Sean, speaking of which, I'm going to talk about this next thing because you did a video on this, and this is going on in Nevada, where Dr. Cosby has a new lawsuit where he's sued by 9 new women in court, citing less than 2 months after the state changed its statute of limitations for civil cases involving these crimes. What you have going on, ladies and gentlemen, are these look-back laws. And I talked about that before. I talked about this before. And we go about this in the book, why this happened to Bill Cosby and why it's important, and reading that book even further. Now, even some of Bill Cosby's detractors, people don't like, people who you could say don't like him, even they looked at this and was like, really, dude? We're really going back over something again? He's being sued in the state of Nevada. Now, this is not new that you get accused of something, but the problem with these, Judy Huff, of course, last year she won a lawsuit, but she was awarded $500,000, which, if you remember from my interview with Andrew Wyatt, it was not a victory because all of that was going to be eaten up by court cost and attorney's fees. Victoria Valentino is not new. She's actually sued Cosby in Los Angeles this month, and she's claiming of being drugged by him in 1969. She did an interview on that mockumentary we called we need to talk about Bill Cosby, when it was a mockumentary in and of itself, not a documentary. We need to talk about Cosby. We need to talk about Kwame Bell and who he is and who put him up to that. But you read this, the laws have been changed all across the country. And in Nevada, they passed a new law that revised provisions allowing victims of sexual assault, alleged victims who are 18 or older when a sexual assault occurred, they can go back and file a lawsuit. It's one of these look-back laws. Lisa Bloom, who is the lawyer who represented Miss Janice Dickinson. Now, this is who's involved in this. Lisa Bloom and Gloria Allred, her daughter, her mother. They involved with this stuff. The problem with all of this, ladies and gentlemen, and these cowardly legislators that we have, is this. How can you defend, if you are a criminal, even it can happen to you by you changing this law, how can you defend something? Imagine you're an 80-year-old man and some hoe from 40 years ago, 50 years ago, whoever, you had a one-night stand with someone, and they can allege some 50 years later, with no evidence, with no police report, no medical report, no rape kit, no physical evidence, nothing, just their word. They can go into a court of law and sue you. And not only sue you, they can bring in other accusers to sit on a witness stand and say almost the same things as you, even though they don't even have any evidence. They don't have any proof. And under the law, you guys should know, when we talk about prior bad act witnesses, especially as criminal defense attorneys, the problem with those prior bad act witness rules, you don't have to be arrested or convicted for that witness to come. If it can show what we call knowledge, intent, motive, modus operandi, something of that nature, they just bring them in. But people are fed up, I think, with these laws being changed. People are speaking out, and it's not going to really change until the legislators themselves feel the blow and impact of this. But Sean, go ahead and talk about it, because this is the reason why you guys got to check out the book. I've told y'all this. This is why this is happening. Every black male entertainer, like Eddie Griffin said, you don't leave this business clean. And Bill Cosby is 85 years old, going on 86, and blind. Who knows if he even know what these freaking women look like, or if he knew them at all.
Well, after looking at these look back laws, I have to wonder if they're constitutional because you're saying you want to look back as related to these allegations, but you're denying this man due process under the law under our Fourth and Sixth Amendment. Because if you're making an allegation against a man like Bill Cosby, then you would think you would allow this man to have his due process under the law and have his day in court to answer these charges in criminal court. And that's where I see a real problem with these look back laws that need to be challenged as related to our Constitution, because these laws basically circumvent our due process under the law, even though they say they're going for civil lawsuits. If you're making a criminal allegation against someone, then you need to allow that person to have their day in court as related to these allegations, especially if in these cases at all. And again, if these women were so serious about these allegations, you would think that they would have gone out here and filed criminal charges against Bill Cosby, because at the time of many of these alleged incidents, as far back as 1979, and in the case of the woman in California in 1969, Jim Crow was still in effect, and Bill Cosby was not a major celebrity with all of this influence the way they allege Les Moonves had with the Los Angeles Police Department. And you would think that these women would have easily been able to go and get Bill Cosby charged with something, because if these cases, some of them they say took place in the 90s, we see O.J. Simpson, who had a similar celebrity status as Bill Cosby. He was starring in Naked Gun movies, and the LA prosecutor was able to get charges against him. So there are a lot of holes as related to this whole case. And again, these look back laws are quite suspect, because these look back laws, again, are, as I see it, unconstitutional. Moreover, you would think that if this is the case as related to these look back laws in California and Nevada, people would be filing lawsuits against white men that with allegations of these kind of sex crimes, like Les Moonves, like Woody Allen, like Roman Polanski. But yet we see silence as related to Woody Allen and Roman Polanski's victim embracing him. So this witch hunt, again, looks to be racial. Moreover, it appears to be unconstitutional, because if these women are allowed to get these lawsuits validated by our courts, it changes the interpretation of our law back to trust and believe, and it undermines our U.S. Constitution as related to due process under the law. So when I look at this witch hunt against Bill Cosby, the implications of it are very dire for the rights of men in this country, because if these women are able to succeed by circumventing our Constitution, it makes it where every man's rights, especially black men's rights, are basically invalidated, and these women can basically go out here and just flout our Constitution. And again, that's a very dangerous situation these legislators in California and Nevada have put us in with these look back laws that I know if you took them to federal court would be thrown out and declared unconstitutional.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Yes, I'm back. I had to step out for a moment, y'all. But whatever Sean was saying was 100% spot on. He did a video on it. The look back laws, let me just say this. I do not believe they are constitutional. And the main reason why I don't believe that is not just the due process aspect of it. That flows through the 14th Amendment as it regards to the states. The Fifth Amendment also has a due process clause that relates to the federal government. But under the Sixth Amendment of the Constitution, you're entitled to what's called a fair and speedy trial. You have a right to not only a fair and impartial trial by a jury of your peers, meaning the jury has to be non-biased, you also are entitled to a speedy trial. Now, typically speaking, of course, when we have murders, there's no statute of limitation on murder, even on rape charges, depending on the states. If it's, of course, if it's a minor of some sorts, I believe in Louisiana, we have a 30-year statute of limitations, which I can see not being changed. But the problem is when you have these unlimited, like I can look back whenever, you're 90 and I'm 60. Now, say it is true. Yes, it's tragic it happened. But I also think about, and I want y'all to think about the 50-year-old man being accused by a 21-year-old woman, and let's say he was innocent. So one's guilty, the 90-year-old's guilty, and the 50-year-old's innocent, but you got the same law. The one who's guilty gets free, but the one who was innocent goes to jail. Do y'all think it's fair? That's why I do that analogy, because that's what I want you to understand why this is wrong. These look-back laws, if you look at them, they're only going after wealthy black men. They went after Michael Jackson. In California, they removed the complete statute of limitations. And they removed these statute of limitations in Nevada and New Jersey. I even pulled up the article. We talk about it in the book. They did it because of Bill Cosby. Y'all think this is a shame? California ended its statute of limitations of rape because after Bill Cosby. CNN did this article. Look at it. The headline.
But they don't want to apply it to white guys.
Yeah, they wouldn't apply it to the Golden State Killer. But they agree here that change will not likely impact the Golden State Killer, because believed to have committed 12 murders and about 50 rapes in the 70s and 80s, because it does not apply retroactively, according to Lori Levinson, who was a professor of law at Loyola Law School. Well, it does if you're black, because remember, California went at Bill Cosby, and that woman filed that, Judy Huff filed that lawsuit from 1974, and she came to collect in 2014, 40 years later. They allowed that. This is dangerous, ladies and gentlemen. I said the Me Too movement is the most dangerous movement on the face of the earth. It's brought back Jim Crow. Because all a white woman got to say is, you did something, you touched me inappropriately, you looked at me. Like, look what's happening to Jonathan Majors. Ain't even been convicted and has lost all of his jobs, all of his income. He doesn't have paper that long like Bill Cosby has. They're already talking about recasting him and changing up the Marvel event, the new Avengers movie, because he was supposed to be the main villain. He's only been in the business for like 5 years. Look, he had a quick rise. Now he's got a hard fall. The point being, ladies and gentlemen, the industry that brings you in will get rid of your ass the minute you get out of line. Don't matter how good an actor you are. Innocent to proven guilty means nothing. You guilty when I say you guilty, even if the court of law says you're innocent. Look at OJ and Michael. Hit that like, share, and subscribe button, ladies and gentlemen. Donate to the Cash App, PayPal, or Zelle. I want to take this opportunity. Yesterday, of course, all week and all month June is Black Music Month. I just want to point out something. Yesterday, I highlighted a brother by the name of Dick Griffey. Now, I'm going to just go over just two quick profiles. I want to say I also put on my YouTube channel today who our other Black music moment is for today. But just to let everybody know who Dick Griffey was, and Sean, I don't know if you've heard of him, but
I haven't heard of him.
Well, Dick Griffey, and people are thankful that I put this out, but I've been celebrating all of the Black musicians, not just the musicians, but it's important to know the executives and the record producers and the songwriters as well, who got the talent that was there. So that's even more important, right? So, and it's not just the Berry Gordys and Motowns, because we've heard of them and so forth, but those that are unknown. So Dick Griffey, who lived out in Los Angeles, was a native of Nashville, Tennessee. He was the co-founder of Solar Records. Now, you of course know Soul Train. Back in the 70s, Don Cornelius had a Soul Train club, and he also created Soul Train Records. And Griffey was the talent coordinator on Soul Train. So he and Don Cornelius became good friends. And eventually, what happened was Cornelius left the record industry, the Soul Train Records, and Griffey decided to create a new record company out of it, which he did with Solar Records. The label especially flourished in the 80s with acts like the Whispers, as well as the Silvers. You also had Shalimar. They produced And the Beat Goes On, Rocksteady with, he's also responsible for bringing Kenneth Babyface Edmonds and L.A. Reid to the label. He worked with a bunch of artists, including Stevie Wonder, Michael Jackson, James Brown, Aretha Franklin, and John Gibson. He was a concert promoter. So he did a crew of things and was very instrumental also in the early days of Death Row Records. He actually helped co-found that record company, but was forced out by his former bodyguard, Suge Knight. So Dick Griffey died in 2010, but his impact is legendary. But he was a great promoter as well. Stevie Wonder once said, "Professionally, I could not talk about my life without there being a chapter on how Dick Griffey as a promoter helped to build my career." He also promoted Kool in the Game. Quincy Jones said Griffey's fingerprints were on some of the biggest hits of the 80s. So we salute Dick Griffey for your Black music moment. Also, I want to salute tonight someone who's also on our YouTube channel. I put him up, is Mr. Charlie Pride. Now, Charlie Pride, it has over 52 top 10 country song hits, 30 of which hit #1. He was the Entertainer of the Year at the Country Music Awards in 1971 and even got a Grammy for Best Country Vocal Performance. He's one of 3 Black Americans in the country music of the Grand Ole Prix, which is the, I guess, the country, it's a country music broadcast forum, along with DeFord Bailey and Darius Rucker from Hootie and the Blowfish. And he was inducted into the Country Music Hall of Fame in 2000. He's a native of Sledge, Mississippi, and served in the Army in the 1950s. While he was a member of the Negro Leagues, he actually played baseball. He played for the Memphis Red Sox, and he was a quartermaster and played on the Fort's baseball team at Fort Carson. He also was a part owner of the Texas Rangers. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know that.
So we also salute Charlie Pride. And I'll have more as the month of June dwindles down. We're going to be saluting more Black Music Month. We're going to do more performers as well as songwriters, producers. Have the next one lined up for tomorrow, who I'll be discussing. But we celebrate Black Music Month, Sean. It's important that our people know our history, especially within the music industry. Now, there we go. So our next and final topic, with all this stuff going on, how many of you know that the House of Representatives voted to impeach Joe Biden? Did you know that, John?
No, I didn't know
All
that.
this stuff was going on. Biden, there was a vote on the floor to impeach Joe Biden. Now, I'm going to play House Republicans' votes to refer Biden impeachment resolution to a committee. This came as a result of Representative Lauren Boebert that has divided some House Republicans. Now, I want to play this clip from USA Today. And McCarthy, the Republican Party right now, too, is fractured over this. They're split, according to the report. But this is the article. Now, what's going on? Of course, you know that Joe Biden's son entered a plea deal. I don't know if you all, he entered a plea deal a few days ago regarding his issues with the Department of Justice for, number one, having owning a firearm as a felon, and the other one was dealing with his income taxes, income tax evasion. Now, let's see if we can play. I hate when these ads play.
I'm very proud of my son.
My first reaction is it continues to show the two-tier system in America. If you were the president's leading political opponent, the DOJ tries to literally put you in jail and give you prison time. If you are the president's son, you get a sweetheart deal. Now, this does nothing to our investigation. It actually should enhance our investigations because the DOJ should not be able to withhold any information now, saying that because of pending investigation, they should be able to provide Chairman Comer with any information that he requires.
Okay, so here's the votes here. So what you see here,
On this vote, the yeas are 219, the nays are 208. The resolution is adopted. Without objection, the motion reconsidered is laid on the table.
now, the independents, I don't even think voted. Some abstained. But you have here Lauren Boebert introduced articles of impeachment against Joe Biden. Now, interesting enough, too, Sean, with regards, if I can jump back to Joe Biden and Hunter Biden, they're comparing Hunter Biden's situation with that of Wesley Snipes. Wesley Snipes actually did time in jail, in federal prison, if we recall. And I happen to know a good friend of his, Judge Joe Brown, who talks and tweeted extensively about how Wesley got done in and how he was wrongfully convicted for this, because, and he actually
what purpose
said
is the gentleman from Colorado seeking
Wesley actually paid the government
Mr.
more
Speaker,
money.
pursuant to
And he was
Clause
supposed
2A1 of Rule 9, I rise to give notice of my intent to raise a question of the privileges of the House. The form of the resolution is as follows: H-Res 503, impeaching Joseph R. Biden, Jr., President of the United States, for high crimes and misdemeanors. Resolved that Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. is impeached for high crimes and misdemeanors, and that the following articles of impeachment be exhibited to the United States Senate. Articles of impeachment exhibited by the House of Representatives of the United States of America in the name of itself and of the people of the United States of America against Joseph R. Biden Jr., President of the United States, in maintenance and support of its impeachment against him for high crimes and misdemeanors. Article 1, abuse of power. The Constitution provides that the House of Representatives, quote, shall have the sole power of impeachment, end quote, and that the President of the United States, quote, shall be removed from office on impeachment for and conviction of treason, bribery, or other high crimes and misdemeanors, end quote. In his conduct as President of the United States and in violation of his constitutional oath faithfully to execute the office of the President of the United States and to the best of his ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, Joseph R. Biden Jr. has abused the powers of the office of the President of the United States. In fact, using the powers of his office, President Biden has knowingly presided over an executive branch that has continuously, overtly, and consistently violated federal immigration law by pursuing an aggressive open borders agenda, by purposefully and knowingly releasing more than 2 million illegal aliens into the interior of the United States without the intention or ability to ensure that they appear in immigration court to face asylum or deportation proceedings. President Biden has intentionally facilitated a complete and total invasion at the southern border. President Biden ended the migrant protection protocols to require aliens seeking asylum to remain in Mexico while being processed by the Department of Homeland Security. President Biden has closed Department of Homeland Security detention facilities and refused to cooperate with the state and local law enforcement officials in securing the border. He has allowed illegal aliens to enter the United States as asylum seekers, despite knowing they did not qualify for asylum. President Biden has pursued this open border agenda purposefully and willfully, circumventing every safeguard, check, and balance required by law, resulting in mass illegal immigration into the United States to the detriment of the American people. President Biden, with such conduct, has demonstrated a failure to uphold federal immigration law, violating his oath to the Constitution if allowed to remain in office, and has acted in a manner grossly incompatible with the rule of law and to the manifest injury of the people of the United States. Wherefore, President Biden, by such conduct, warrants impeachment and trial, removal from office, and disqualification to hold and enjoy any office of honor, trust, or profit under the United States. Article 2, dereliction of duty. The Constitution provides that the House of Representatives, quote, shall have the sole power of impeachment, end quote, and that the President of the United States, quote, shall be removed from office on impeachment for and the conviction of treason, bribery, and other high crimes and misdemeanors, end quote. In his conduct as President of the United States and in violation of his constitutional oath faithfully to execute the office of the President of the United States, and in violation of his constitutional duty to take care that the laws be faithfully executed, Joseph R. Biden Jr. has neglected the constitutional duty of the office of the President of the United States. In that neglecting the powers of his office, President Biden has abandoned his duties to ensure that the laws are faithfully executed and upheld by presiding over an executive branch that is continuously and overtly and consistently refused to enforce the nation's immigration laws and secure the southern border. President Biden has endangered the security of the United States and the health and safety of the American people. President Biden has caused a national security crisis and is endangering the lives of the American people. President Biden has presided over the largest influx of illegal immigrants in American history, and as evidence of his dereliction, the deportation cases pursued by his administration are at historic lows. President Biden President Biden's negligence of duty has resulted in the surrender of operational control of the border to the complete and total control of foreign criminal cartels, putting the lives of American citizens in jeopardy. On President Biden's watch, illegal aliens have been processed and released into the interior of the country under a mass system of parole, contrary to the clear terms of federal immigration law. Utilizing the quote CBP one end quote program, the executive branch
I'm a little
will
tired of
release
hearing that.
nearly 40,000 illegal
Basically,
aliens
that's
per month
the gist
into
of
the
it.
United States.
She's given the charges of impeachment that you can see here. Sean, I don't know if anything will come about this. It's been pushed to a subcommittee. Obviously, it has to go to a Senate, just like what we had with Trump. You can be voted to be impeached, but whether it gets approved by the Senate is another thing. Of course, Trump was not convicted on any articles of impeachment, neither Biden. What do you think of this?
I don't think it's going to come of anything because the blue party controls the Senate, and while the red party controls the House, this is not going to go anywhere, because in order for this to go anywhere, you would have to need the red party to control both the House and the Senate, and they just don't have the majority of votes to make this go anywhere. Just like in the case of President Trump, this is an empty symbolic gesture to try to make it look like the red party is trying to hold Joe Biden accountable, but it's just a waste of time. And I would rather just them focus on, if they want to go out here to unseat Joe Biden from the presidency, use these as talking points in the presidential campaign, because this is just something that's just, again, going to go nowhere, because the votes just aren't there. And if you don't have the votes, you're just wasting people's time with these empty gestures of impeachment, which trivialize impeachment, which is meant to be used seriously as related to issues of really egregious conduct. And while they do have some arguments as related to the border and other issues, again, they just don't have the votes. And the best place to take this is on the campaign trail and use this as issues to hammer on Joker Joe to get him on so he won't win the next election.
Yeah. You think he's going? I don't think he's going to even win the next election. But of course, what they're doing also, you got Trump with his federal charges that he's facing out in New York, as well as charges out in Florida. I think all of it is to keep him from running. I think that certainly is to keep him from running for reelection. And now you got Joe Biden, who's saying he's going to run for reelection. I'm sorry, I said Trump was running for reelection. He's not, but technically, I guess you could say he is. But Biden is running for reelection. Trump is trying to seek the 2024 election. You have DeSantis, who's going to run as well. I think this whole country is screwed just from looking at this. Go ahead, Sean. What you got to say?
Well, I think this election is going to be a major disaster. It just shows how far the nation has fallen. There is no leadership. We've got a bunch of clowns and no direction. So this is one of the most embarrassing things I have ever seen as related to politics, as related to the state of this union.
Yeah. I think, who knows where this is going to go. I don't think it'll go anywhere. But people are confused. Biden is more confused every day. Shout out to Cheryl Massey. Thank you for your donations, Queen. What we have next? Don't have much next. I did want to ask Sean this and bring this up. Young brothers, especially, if you got some money, please don't end up like Zion Williamson. Now, he's being threatened. He has this porn star that essentially is threatening him, exposing stuff, saying she's got videotapes of this, but she had her Twitter account removed. Now, apparently Zion likes to bust in Instagram models and stuff. When you got money, you're young and dumb, you don't realize things. This is what's happening to him. But you've heard of this, Sean, what's going on with him?
Yeah, I've heard what's happening with Zion Williamson, and it just shows what happens when a man doesn't have any guidance from season, man. I mean, what happened with Zion Williamson is you got a simp out here flying out porn stars.
Sick with money who doesn't even play.
Yeah. He's not very smart, and he's the kind of guy, he may not have money for long because he set himself up to get jammed up real bad. Now, any other guy out here knows not to get involved with porn stars and these type of women because they can go out here and leak stories and scandals on you and destroy your career. I mean, he hasn't really learned anything. I know it's been 30 years since Mike Tyson got jammed up by Desiree Washington, and it's sad that I'm seeing guys like him and many of these other players like Ja Morant getting jammed up because these guys really are not learning about how to move in these streets. And again, they're making moves that can just destroy their whole careers, going out here getting involved with stuff that any other guy who was smart would have learned how to avoid. And again, listening to him talking about getting involved with a porn star, again, just really dumb. I mean, this guy doesn't understand in this era of Me Too, an allegation can basically destroy your life and make it where you'll never even have freedom. So when I listen to this guy, again, it's just really sad. No man has sat down and talked to him about how to move out here, and he's making dumb moves that will make it where he will be poor in less than 3 to 5 years.
Yeah. He has only played 119 games in 3 seasons. He's missed, I don't remember when he missed 2019 and 2020 due to injury. He tore his Achilles heel last year. He came back and did a little bit better, but yeah, Zion has been very.
Do you say enough is enough? We're willing to walk away from a generational talent because all the baggage has just gotten to a level where we just don't want to deal with it anymore, or because we know when that dude's on the court and committed to playing basketball, he's so damn good, we're willing to put up with just about anything.
Well, I don't think it comes down to off the court stuff because, off the court stuff, we just need to keep that stuff in house and get it together. On the court, he just hasn't played in 200 games.
And that's the bigger problem.
That's the biggest problem.
Okay.
I need him on the court to win games for my team, to get us to that next
level. So let me stop you
there.
there. If you're another team out there, and listen, I'm a Knicks fan, everyone knows that. And there have been thoughts, maybe the Knicks would put something together, thinking that New Orleans is dissatisfied. And like you said, he's missed 194 games.
Yes.
Would you trade?
That's another problem. I don't know if I could trust a guy to trade for him.
Yeah.
Is he in shape to play? Is he in shape now?
Now look, the girl in question, Mariah Mills, this is the woman who he apparently been messing with. This is another woman, Hakima, who is also an IG model. That's another way to say she don't work. Let's just be real. They make their monies. Let's keep it real. They're attractive women. I agree. But they make their monies off their looks. And men fly out to, especially rich men, basketball players. You had Shaq looking for the Home Depot girl. Remember that?
Yeah.
Shaq was simping for her. And she dropped the bag with that, by the way. But Zion, who has got a multi-million-dollar contract deal with the Pelicans, is about to throw it all away on this. And you got to realize something. And this woman, she wrote, better pray I'm not pregnant too because I'm definitely late at Zion Williamson. I wish you was with you last week in New Orleans and you couldn't tell me. I was with you last week in New Orleans. You couldn't tell me you had a random thought pregnant after all I've done for you. I let you F me so many times without a condom. And this is what you do to me. A hood rat that does CPN. You put my life in danger, effing me, all these hoes raw. And she went on and now her Twitter account got suspended, thank God. But she says, NBA, I have sex tapes of me and Zion Williamson, and he also has them on his trap phone. Trade him now. He doesn't deserve to be in New Orleans. Sex tapes dropping soon. What this woman is attempting to do, ladies and gentlemen, is extort money from Zion Williamson ultimately. That's all they want is money. And this reminds me of what happened with Bill Cosby in the 90s after his son Enos Cosby was murdered. If you remember, the woman Autumn Jackson sent a fax to Bill Cosby asking for $40 million. Or else I'm gonna tell everybody I'm your illegitimate daughter. The FBI got a copy of this. They had the fax information. They not only arrested her, they arrested her boyfriend, who became her husband, as well as 2 other Russian individuals. This was all going on after Enos was murdered. You got to read the book because I go in detail about it. And that book is available on Kindle. It's easy to get. It's actually the quickest way to get on your phone. Judge Joe Brown has endorsed it. Sean James has endorsed it. And most importantly, Mr. Cosby has endorsed it. So you ought to get that. Am I right, Sean?
Yeah, you should get this book. Very well done.
Very well done. Also, drop a gift if you can by supporting the Cash App, PayPal, or Zelle. As you know, YouTube has us on a shadow ban. Our channel's not monetized. Sean, you want to talk about what your show will be about tomorrow? Or you have
Well, my show is going to be about the decline of Warner Brothers Discovery, and I'm going to be talking about how they're getting ready to sell off part of their catalog.
You got change for $1? I'll buy it. Yeah, I actually saw The Flash. The Flash flopped just like Shazam. And the reason why those movies flopped in part was because when you have James Gunn, you kill your own business when you say we're not going to follow through this franchise, but hey, we still going to release these movies. Why don't y'all check them out? At that point, the public loses interest in that.
Yep.
Which is why The Flash flopped hard. And plus, Ezra Miller is a terrorist. He's a domestic, self-centered little prick.
Yep.
Going in people's houses and shit. And honestly, they just had the red carpet premiere over at the main theater in LA. I was just out in LA last week. And me and my friend walked out there and we saw it. We didn't see The Flash, but we saw the theater where they had everything gated up. And let me just say, LA, a lot of stuff, it blew me away being in Los Angeles, seeing the stuff that I saw. It's not some stuff is not sunshine and rainbows. There's a lot of good stuff with it too, though. But certainly different. It's certainly different than New Orleans. Let's put it that way. New Orleans got its issues. All right, Sean. Thank you very much, brother. If you want to do a plug-in, you can do it right now.
All right, my new book, John Haynes 1987, is now available in paperback and digital format at Amazon.com and online booksellers. And if you want to learn about lessons about life and love for teenagers in the 1980s, you definitely want to get this book.
All right. Yeah, The Flash and Elemental bomb at the box office. Are people not just going to the movies anymore, Sean? Do you think it's because of COVID that's killed?
No, people are going to the movies, but they want movies that they want to see. And the thing is that the superhero movie has basically burnt out as a genre. And what the audience wants is something completely different. But the studios are still so obsessed with trying to keep making these superhero movies that they're not taking any of the risks that would allow them to reach audiences today.
Yeah. All right, bro. Well, we're going to wrap this up, ladies and gentlemen. We want to thank everybody for tuning in to another exciting edition of Random Topic Thursdays, the hottest live stream on YouTube in the cosmos and of social media. Ladies and gentlemen, hit that notification bell, get that book on Amazon Kindle, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Thank you, Danielle. Thank you, Cheryl, for your donation. I appreciate it. I'm getting better a little bit. I'm still drowsy. Still congested, man. It's been bad. And it looks like LSU won the baseball game, too. So I guess that's some good news. See you later, Sean.
All right. You have a good evening.
All right. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. This has been another edition of Random Topic Thursdays here on YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll holla. Peace. Happy birthday to my loving lady, fiance, Tanisha. Love you. Peace.